Significant events will be involved in the coming of the end. So what are they? I want to introduce them to you real quick and give you a chance to write in the blank some things to think about. The first one is the return of Christ. So I would want you to write down there the second coming. We've looked in the Bible. We've seen that Christ says He's coming again. We call that the second coming. And that's a significant event when Christ returns into human history and everyone has to face that day. And no one escapes it because they're in the Bahamas on vacation. Or they're fishing in Canada and they missed it. I mean, whether or not, wherever you are, there you're going to be at the coming of the Lord, the second coming. Now, again, we talked a while ago about the resurrection. Christ is bodily resurrected. He is still God living in human flesh. He's been doing that for 2,000 years. And when He comes again, He's going to be in human flesh. He's going to stay in human flesh for all eternity as the God-man who shows us that God truly wants to dwell with us as human beings. He's going to come in great glory. So this return is not going to be like, hey, I think I saw Jesus up in the Motomart. You want to come up there and see? I mean, I don't know if you heard that when Jesus was teaching. He said, it's not going to be like that. That's the false Christ. When people say, hey, He's over here, or come with me over there, He says, as the lightning is from the east to the west, so will the coming of the Son of Man be. It's going to be something everybody's going to be aware of. Okay? Unlike the first coming, exactly. He was quite hidden, and only a few people recognized and saw His glory because it was hidden, and they just saw a regular guy, and they didn't believe He was the God the Son. And when He comes back again, everybody's going to see it. People who currently love Him and have faith in Him and believe that He's their Savior, and the hardest atheist who just rejects anything about God is going to say, whoa, Jesus is the Lord, and I'm in trouble. All right, so another significant event, the time of tribulation, or the Great Tribulation. Here's a chance for you to do some thinking. How long is this going to be? Jeff, you read that, right? It's going to be cut short, right?
7 years.
Where do you get that idea from of 7 years? From my wife?
It's in Revelation.
It's in Revelation. Have you guys heard that before? Maybe you've heard of the 7-year tribulation. I'm going to give you a couple scriptures to look at, to ponder. There are ideas out there that this is already a known fact. It's going to be a 7-year duration. And let me give you Revelation 13:5, where John, the author, makes a reference there to something happening for 42 months. So, quick math. 42 months is what? 3.5 years. 3.5 is half of 7. Right? And then again, Revelation 12:14, something is going to happen time, times, and half a time. Well, that's kind of odd. We don't talk in that kind of poetic language. But time is singular, times is plural, and half a time. So if times is 2, and time is 1, and half a time, we're back at 3.5, which is half of 7. So what I want you to know is that there's a lot of speculation based on the scriptures in Revelation and also in Daniel that, that this period of great suffering is going to be a 7-year period. Now, at the end of my introduction to this, you're going to have an opportunity to either go to Jake's study on knowing God or to be a part of the other group and study the book of Daniel, the handwriting on the wall from David Jeremiah. And he's going to, as you go through that study, going to be exposed to some of these teachings from Daniel. In fact, if you remember, when Jesus was teaching, He said, and when you see the abomination that causes desolation, place where it shouldn't be, and then the narrator said, let the reader beware, then those that are in Judea flee to the mountains. Do you know anything about the abomination of desolation? Obviously, he's appealing to something that people should know. It's referenced in the book of Daniel. So as you get in there, you're going to see things that have to do with those, what I call the eschatological clues that you try to fit together and figure out what's really going on in the world. All right, so the time of tribulation. The next thing is the rapture. So we get this term, rapture, from the Latin Vulgate translation of the Bible, where in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 17, it literally means to catch up, to snatch someone. So if you go back and look at those references to the Greek word's harpazo there, it's used to snatch people out of the fire. It was when Paul was snatched up into heaven for his vision, and it's this 1 Thessalonians, Christ snatching his people to him in the clouds. Yes, Corey.
Is that I've heard that the people at the airports with the ponytails, that is for them to be snatched up. That's why they wear the ponytail.
I do not know that. I figure out whatever your hair's cut, God's going to be able to get you where you need to be. If He can speak the universe into existence, Corey and Bob and me, guys that don't have a lot of hair, we can get snatched up. It's not like, oh, I didn't get a hand on it.
He's right. They can do that.
But that's Hare Krishnas, right? But the Hare Krishnas are not Christians.
No, but they
So I don't know if they even believe that Christ...
That's not Christ.
That's what I understand the ponytails for.
Okay.
That's a handle for God to snatch them up on that.
Okay. I have not heard that. I will. That you give me homework now to go home and think about that and look and try to figure out if that's really something there. The wick of a candle. So, the reason I want to highlight the issue of the rapture is there are different interpretations among Christians as to what is the rapture, when is the rapture. Yes, Gail?
She's waving.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I interrupting something? What I would like to do, I've been told about 8:15 we need to wrap up so we can have time to pray and whatever. So let me give you the last significant event that references the end, and then the rest of this we'll have to pick up and work on next time. But there's a reference here to the millennium. Now you guys remember at the year 2000 we entered a new millennium. So what's millennium? Do you know?
1,000 years.
It's Latin for 1,000 years. And there's a reference in the book of Revelation, chapter 20, verses 1 to 10, of a 1,000-year period. And depending on what we understand this to mean, it tends to mean this idea that Christ is on the earth, establishing that earthly kingdom that was promised in Isaiah and Daniel, and He's going to rule over this kingdom on earth for a 1,000-year period. And you can go and read Revelation 20 about that. This is one of those places where, and if I'm wrong, I'd ask you to correct me because I'm not sure, but I believe this is the only place that there's a clear reference to the concept of the millennium. And it's in Revelation, which is like swimming in the ocean when you're a toddler. So it's really hard to always understand everything in Revelation. And so therefore, not everybody has the same interpretation of what the millennium will be like and when it's going to happen. And we'll talk about that some next time. But we have the return of Christ, which is significant, the time of tribulation, the rapture, and the millennium. So now my question is, in what order do these events take place? That's going to be the dividing points that we're going to begin to deal with next time. So here's what we'll do. I have a handout, I have a chart, and I also have kind of some teaching for you on these different positions. You can look at them, you can start, if you want to go home and do some reading on them on your own. There's stuff out there on Wikipedia about it or whatever. You can do that, or we'll just tackle it next time. But it's going to take a while to get through it. And so I think I'd like us to work through it, and then I would like us to look at the Olivet Discourse and listen to the teaching of Jesus and say, okay, what is Jesus telling us here as how we might interpret the end? Now I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to ask you, do you folks have any questions for me? It's probably a dangerous thing to say, but...